I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Education to order. It is August 18th, 2025. Mr. Drewer, could you do roll call, please?
Here. And Ms. Larimer.
Here.
Ms. Menke.
Yes.
Mr. Anderson. Here. Ms. Rowland Miller.
Here. You all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We want to thank everyone for coming tonight, and we are in the Commodore building, so thank you for coming to the Commodore building. We care about the safety of everyone here. We care about the safety of our students and families and staff and guests. Please note that there are exits on both the east and west sides of the cafeteria. In case of emergency, there is an AED located right outside of this room if needed. If you need to call emergency personnel and need the address, it is 140 East Indiana Avenue. Our first item after our opening is to adopt the proposed agenda. We did remove an item from the agenda that had been posted. That was the lease for 199, and we have added 17.8, which is moving our work session from Wednesday the 3rd to Thursday the 4th. So with the agenda as amended, could I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Here, Ms. Larimer, Mr. Bennington. Any discussion? Mr. Drewer, roll call, please.
Ms. Larimer.
Yes.
Mr. Bennington.
Yes.
Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
Ms. Menke.
Yes.
Ms. Rowland Miller.
Yes. All right. The first thing on our agenda this evening is our recognition. Normally, this is when we recognize students, but tonight we recognize the superintendent of 18 years, Mr. Hostler. He is going to hate the next part of this meeting as we get to talk about him, but thank you for the gift of being able to recognize you, because we feel the need to recognize you in this time. The first person I'm going to turn it over to is Mr. Bennington.
Thank you, Ms. Rowland Miller. Just do it here? Flip the podium?
Whatever you're
I'm
comfortable
just going to do it here. Tom, I'm used to doing things. I like to do things kind of off the cuff. This one was a little bit too important for me to screw anything up or, not be very intentional with what I want to say here. So I'm going to, if you forgive me, I'm going to read some comments that I wrote here. So, of all the unexpected things 2025 has thrown our way, writing a farewell note to someone I've admired for over a decade and a half definitely wasn't on my bingo card. Tom, it's been hard to put into words just how much your leadership has meant, not just to Perrysburg schools, but to all of us who've had a chance to work alongside you. Our paths first crossed back in 2010 when I was voluntold to help you with levy campaigns by a former colleague who sends his best, by the way. From there, I got to be part of early conversations that led to Hall Prairie Intermediate and eventually joined the school board to support your vision more directly. We've navigated our fair share of challenges and celebrated our fair share of successes. It's been an incredible journey. You've always led with purpose and heart. Your approach went far beyond academics. You built a well-rounded, forward-thinking educational environment. From creative funding strategies and strong community partnerships to encouraging civic engagement among students, you've helped shape something truly special here. One of the standout achievements under your leadership was creating the Perrysburg Schools Foundation into a powerhouse, raising millions of dollars to support long-term excellence, both inside and outside our classrooms. That kind of foresight is rare, and it has made a huge difference. Thanks to your vision, Perrysburg is a destination district. To again highlight some well-documented accomplishments recently noted by Ms. Rowland Miller, we've seen a 25% growth in student enrollment. We've passed 9 levies. We opened Hall Prairie Intermediate. And you did all this while keeping spending per student well below the state average. That is an amazing impact. During the pandemic, your response was both compassionate and strategic. You pushed for critical funding through House Bill 110, prioritized student well-being, both socially, emotionally, and physically, and you made sure our community had a voice through focus groups. Your leadership during that time was not just felt here in Perrysburg, but across Northwest Ohio, and dare say, throughout the state. Local business leaders have recognized your role our schools play in the region's economic growth, and they've reached out to me. I hope they've reached out to you, more importantly, in appreciation of the positive impact you've had in this region. Beyond the numbers and milestones, your belief in students and your commitment to the community has been unwavering. Perrysburg Schools constantly shines in academics, the arts, and extracurricular, and that's a direct reflection of the culture you've built. As you step into your new role as the CEO of the Ohio School Boards Association, I want to extend my warmest congratulations and my deepest thanks. I thank you as a board member, as a community member, a father of 2 proud Perrysburg alumni, and as someone who has personally witnessed your expertise, empathy, and excellence. Your leadership inspires confidence, and your dedication to education continues to make a meaningful difference across Ohio. Your legacy here is strong, and your influence will continue to shape education across the state. I'm grateful for everything you've done and wish you nothing but the best in your next chapter. Thank you. Probably went over my 3 minutes.
Thank you. This time, I'd like to invite up to the podium Mayor Thomas Mackin.
Thank you very much.
I think you have to turn the mic on.
Thank you very much for the reminder and the podium, so I didn't drop
Might be
anything. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to recognize Superintendent Hassler for all that he's accomplished for the schools and the community. Before getting to all the whereases of the proclamation, I would like to point out something I know, and I know others in the community know very well, that Tom really takes a lot of time and interest in the extracurricular activities from all the sports. And he was voluntold at one point to help keep the book for the 9th grade basketball team. And anyone who's ever been to a 9th grade basketball game knows nobody's watching. So with that in mind, as Coach Wooden is attributed as saying, the true test of a man's character is what you do when no one's watching. But people were watching. The basketball players on my 9th grade team would be like, the superintendent is at our game and he's keeping the book. That was like after the 3rd or 4th game, they actually had the intelligence and or the courage to say that to themselves. The parents of the kids knew, and they commented on it. And more importantly, the parents and coaches from the other districts noticed that the superintendent of the schools was attending the freshman basketball game, and not just that, but keeping the book. It's really a tribute to his willingness to demonstrate that there was no job too big or too small, that he cared about the students, and he demonstrated that not by words, but by deeds. So as a parent and as a coach, I want to thank you very much for all you've done for the community. Now, on behalf of my capacity as the mayor, and I will save you from all the whereas clauses, but I will read just several of them. Whereas Superintendent Hassler has been a steadfast advocate for students, educators, and families, working tirelessly for our community as well as the state level to create adequate opportunities for all and to ensure adequate funding to serve the students. And whereas Superintendent Hassler has led with integrity, compassion, and vision, earning the respect and admiration of colleagues, parents, community members, and most importantly, the students whose lives have been positively impacted. And whereas the city of Perrysburg recognizes the profound legacy that Superintendent Hassler leaves behind and expresses deep gratitude for your 18 years of public service and education and leadership. Now, therefore, I, Thomas G. Mackin, Mayor of the City of Perrysburg, recognize and thank Thomas Hassler for 18 years of dedicated service to the Perrysburg schools and our community, and wish him the very best in all his future endeavors. Congratulations and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Mackin. At this time, I'd like to recognize Ms. Larimer.
I agree with Eric. This was one of my more tough assignments as a board member. I am grateful for Tom Hassler because 13 years ago when we met, he didn't discourage my candidacy for the board, but encouraged me with guidance and facts, openly and willingly answering all my hundreds of questions, and never once was he ungracious to this newbie.
I knew I couldn't do this. I am grateful for Tom Hassler because I've learned so very much from this man on how to handle the myriad of diverse situations and the complex workings of public education in our state. Woo, boy, that was an education. I am grateful for Tom Hassler because even when I was annoying, like now, he treated me with respect and kindness, which taught me to try and do the same, albeit I am still learning to do so. I am grateful for Tom Hassler because he has affected my life in such a positive way that I will carry his teachings with me for the rest of mine. At his core, he is a teacher and I a student, and he has blessed me by sharing his graciousness and wisdom, as well as the best analogies ever thought by a human being possible. Godspeed to you, Tom, and to Robin as well, as you travel off to this new adventure. Clearly, I will miss you, while at the same time, I am exceedingly grateful that Dr. Anstead has agreed to help us through your absence. God bless you, sir.
And I'm next, and then we'll have the resolution. I think, Tom, I had to look back for the actual date for this, but I think we met in the spring of 2008. It was your first year as superintendent, and my son and daughter were at Frank. My son's class sizes fluctuated between 20 and almost 30 per year, depending on the redistricting, the section, and the number of sections they had. And at some point after third grade, we had 4 teachers and class sizes were in the third grade at around 28. And so I went to the principal, I didn't know anything about schools, and I said, how do we get the 4 teachers and not the 3 teachers for next year for 4th grade? And it turns out he was retiring, which I didn't know at the time. And so what he said was, which I found out later probably wasn't the right answer, which was go talk to the superintendent. And so I gathered somehow 3 other parents with me, and somehow I didn't know what a superintendent was, but I ended up in a meeting with you where we asked to have the 4 teachers and not the 3 teachers. The outcome of that story was that we ended up with 4 teachers. I don't know why. I don't know if what we did had any impact on that. I now know that there are so many things that go into those decisions. When I've asked you, you have never once responded to that question, did that have anything to do with it? You've wisely, as you often do, said nothing. What I do remember about that meeting, though, was how well this new superintendent listened to us. You asked us questions and you made us feel like we had been heard. We believed that it was because of that meeting that we ended up with 4 sections. I don't think our paths crossed again until 2015 when I was talked into by somebody in this room for running for school board. I was suggested then that I also reach out and meet with you. By then, I had a better idea of who the superintendent was, but not much more about what you actually did. Once again, you took the time. You listened to me, you answered my questions, you offered resources, and you noted that your door would always be open, which it always been since then. There are too many things today to thank you for. I think what Mr. Bennington and Ms. Larimer have offered and the proclamations just start to scratch the surface. There are too many things because you have spent your life, literally, for the last 18 years in this district, dedicating yourself to the staff and the families and the board members, and especially to the students. Your legacy and the vision you have created in this district will ensure that all students reach their fullest potential for many, many more years. But what I really want to thank you for today and lift up is that no matter when or no matter what the circumstances, you have always been a person of constant integrity and deep kindness. You have not only made me a better board member, but you have made me a better person. You model what it means to be a person of conviction and belief while being open and respectful to others. One of the great misconceptions in our communities nowadays, I think, is that there were some good old easy days with no conflict or disagreement in our school district. But if you look back at the news stories around the time that you were hired, you walked into the middle of the controversy about the use of the Commodore building. Less than 4 months before you were hired, there was an auction to purchase the building that resulted in absolutely no bids. Your first full interview in the Perrysburg Messenger Journal was about the Commodore, where you compared the Commodore to his grandfather's 1986 Buick. I think it is the first documented case in Perrysburg of one of your many analogies. That first fall, there were letters to the editors from some very familiar names still about all-day kindergarten, the misuse of tax funds in purchasing modular units for the junior high, and of course, the Commodore building. And then in March, just that next spring, right around the time when I was meeting with you, was the first of many, many levies that you've ushered through to the ballot. I don't really think you've ever had it easy in this district, although some years have certainly been more challenging than others. But no matter what has come at you, you have always stood steadfastly in the midst of crises and conflicts, while acknowledging the limits of your powers, and always offering thoughtfulness, dedication, and wisdom. While you couldn't fix everything or make everyone happy, including me sometimes, in every decision or action or word, I have never, ever questioned your moral compass, your trustworthiness, or your commitment to put what is best for the students in front of everything else. As a board member, I am thankful that this school district has been blessed to have you as our leader for 18 years. As a community member, I am grateful that we have been led by a man who is a person of high character and whose values are lived out in his actions. As a board member, I am relieved and excited to have you lead the Ohio School Board Association with the same integrity and compassion and dedication. Thank you. This time the board has our own resolution, and the difference is we're going to read all of our whereases. This is a resolution of gratitude and appreciation honoring Thomas L. Hostler for 18 years of dedicated leadership to Perrysburg School District.
Whereas Thomas L. Hostler has faithfully led Perrysburg schools with integrity, compassion, and dedication for the past 18 years.
Whereas under his strategic and tireless leadership, the school district has improved academic excellence in the midst of significant growth, always keeping students in the center of all decisions.
Whereas he has partnered with faculty and staff members as trusted colleagues, valuing their expertise and creating an environment where collaboration thrives and innovation is encouraged.
Whereas he has relentlessly advocated with legislators and across the state for full funding for educating every student.
Whereas, as always the teacher and lifelong learner, he has served as a mentor to leaders within the school district and across the state, offering guidance and wisdom.
Whereas, with a servant's heart, he is led by example, nurturing a commitment to service and volunteerism in students and the community as a whole.
Whereas, among his many memorable traits and actions, he will be especially remembered for supporting students at cross-country meets, bringing seasonal joy through holiday decorating and festive suits, filling the air with favorite records and walk-up songs, and offering well-crafted analogies.
Whereas he has dedicated his life and time to the success of Perrysburg schools, ensuring all students achieve their greatest potential, and
Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education of Perrysburg Exempted Villages School District, Wood County, Ohio, on behalf of the entire school community, does hereby extend its deepest gratitude and heartfelt appreciation to Superintendent Thomas L. Hostler for his 18 years of extraordinary service and steadfast commitment to every student.
Be it further resolved that this resolution of thanks be entered into the official minutes of the Board of Education and presented to Thomas L. Hostler as a lasting expression of our gratitude and recognition. We also have a few other gifts. Tom, don't sit down. We have a few other gifts that we wanted to present you. One is, so this is your certificate of service, but you'll notice that it is an album cover, and I just want to read it for everyone. Many thanks to Hannah for the creativity, and I'm sure Rachel had a part of this. It is the Platinum Record of Service. In gratitude for 18 years of dedicated service to the students, families, staff, and community of Perrysburg schools, it is the greatest hits of 2007 to 2025, and there are featured tracks such as Leaving a Legacy and Longest Serving Super. And then we have one last gift that didn't make it.
Yeah.
So there is a picture of a gift in a card. And in lieu of the gift, which we, every year recently at least, you get for your first day of school, you have your backpack and you have your lunchbox. And as we send you off to this new adventure that you're going to be on, we wanted to get you your own backpack, although it's in the form of a leather messenger bag that will arrive with a P on it. There was some concern that, not all the other 600 and some school districts might like that P, but we didn't really care. So that bag will arrive, but in the meantime, I got some popcorners for you and some cake. And then Ms. Larimer has some, she can explain.
It's full of things that you can't live without. So we've got jelly beans, chocolate-covered raisins.
Cat treats. Cat treats.
Oh, the cat treats, because wherever you go, there will be cats that will follow you. We have some Post-it notes, that one is of Ohio and one, of course, is pandas, so you had to have that. But that's your, until the other one gets here.
Thanks for allowing us to do that. I think at this time we do have a 5-minute break. We will take that 5-minute break. So it is 8 after right now. We will be back at 6:13. Ms. Larimer? Ms. Larimer? All right, we are back with 5.1 public comment. I'd like to do a friendly amendment to the agenda to move 19.1 up to after 5.1, if there's no objections. Sorry, I did that. Okay. So first, we will have items that we will be considering as part of our agenda this evening, and Mr. Smith is here to speak to item number 7.
And this is on? Okay, great.
So, yeah, name, address.
Cal Smith, 403 Rutledge Court, Perrysburg, former board member. I'm here to speak about the vote for an interim, and I'd like to first say that no matter how much flowery praise and all that stuff that you want to give out in general terms, the fact is still that you've been soundly defeated the last 3 times. And, you know, I'm outnumbered here, which that's where I was on the school board. But I want to point out that when it comes to the community, you guys are outnumbered. And I'm really disappointed that you're not doing something to address what the public's saying, and that is, we don't want this. First, though, I want to be a little positive. I want to suggest that the interim, and perhaps, if that isn't good enough, a 2-year contract for superintendent, that you consider Brooke Price. I say that because I've talked to people. A former longtime administrator said that her school was the best he had ever seen. Someone who was certainly considered to be critical of school said that she really ran a tight ship, and I think this is pretty good praise. I don't know her well, except I did get into a discussion with her, and she handled herself very professionally, considering that I was coming at her pretty good. And I do want to, I guess, is she back there somewhere? I guess I want to kind of apologize for that. Maybe it was a heated night. So anyhow, I also want to point out that I don't understand how you have done this with Katie Amstead. She's starting tomorrow, and the vote's tonight, and I don't know how you didn't violate the Open Meetings Act, because you can't give someone a position without a vote, and there was no vote in the public, and that vote in the public meeting is going to come here in a few minutes. So I just don't get it. So anyhow, I hope that somehow this goes out. I know I've listened to meetings, and it's been, oh, we have confidence in our administration, and it's those mean-spirited people in the community. So I guess when you don't get your own way, you just blame the people you're working for, the people you're supposed to listen to. Believe me, I've seen mean-spirited involved in this school, and a lot of it was directed towards me.
That's 3 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Block. If you could come up and share your name. If you could use the middle. Yeah, thank you.
I'm taking the scenic route.
Yeah. Yeah. So your name and address.
Jeremy Block, 1268 Woodstream Road. Good evening, members of the board. I'm here tonight as a parent of 3 Perrysburg students, an advocate for the enrichment of our students' experiences beyond the classroom. My 6th grade daughter discovered her passion for basketball through Perrysburg Junior Jackets a few years back. An after-school initiative that has introduced her to the sport in both 3rd and 4th grade. That program sparked a love for basketball that continues to shape her growth and confidence today. And I was happy to hear Mayor and discuss the commitment to the basketball program here in Perrysburg. Junior Jacket serves as approximately 800 students annually and relies heavily on access to our elementary school gymnasiums. Without these facilities, hundreds of students could lose the opportunity to explore the interests, build friendships, and develop the valuable life skills, just as my daughter did. Sadly, this year, my third grade daughter and her classmates may not have that same opportunity. I understand that staffing shortages, particularly among custodians, have created barriers to keeping our facilities open after hours. While I respect the importance of the union agreements, I believe that there is room for creative and collaborative problem solving there. I have community members willing to volunteer. I know families are ready to support pay-to-play models, yet current contract language prevents volunteers from stepping in when staffed custodians are unavailable. I also understand there's a blanket ban on the use of the elementary schools. This rigidity is costing our students access to programs that align directly with the district's strategic goals. So let me remind you of the first goal that Perrysburg put in their strategic plan in 2023, to create an excellent student experience. The district has committed to empowering students to discover their passion through extracurricular activities and opportunities. Perrysburg also defined 6 core competencies of their portrait of a jacket: problem solvers, persistent innovators, empathetic citizens. I ask you, please, how can we expect our students to embody these traits if we as a community do not model them ourselves? How can we ask our children to be problem solvers and innovators if we are unwilling to find solutions to these challenges just like these? How can we ask them to be empathetic when we fail to show them empathy for the lost opportunities? I urge this board to apply the same competencies that they're asking of the students. Let's be thoughtful, persistent, and empathetic. Let's find a way to reopen our elementary schools, facilities to restore access to programs that enrich our students' lives. I'm more than willing to help and lead this effort if you don't have somebody who can. For that reason alone, there's no excuse not to try. I look forward to your thoughts on how we can work together to overcome these challenges and recover the district's strategic plan with the values you've promised the students to uphold. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Block. Thank you. All right. Appreciate the community coming, and we'll be following up. Thank you. Our next item is 6.1. We did want to share a little bit more beyond what we were able to do back at our work session about the process of how we got from Tom getting a phone call that changed his life and ours to where we are presenting a contract in our next item for approval. So we're going to, Mr. Hostler is going to begin us, and I'll pick up some of that.
Okay.
And we'll certainly have a time for discussion with the board if there's questions or comments.
Sure. Thank you. Want to begin with superintendents and treasurers are different than any other position in Ohio. And I think beginning to understand that will help shape the conversation, because if we need a different interim position somewhere in the district, there's a process that we employ as district administrators to fill that position. But the superintendent and treasurer are a little bit different. So with the superintendent, under the Ohio Revised Code, is the executive officer to the board. And what that means is that the only employee that answers directly to the board, or the only employees that answer directly to the board, are the treasurer and the superintendent. So unlike other staff positions, which either Mr. Dreyer, if they're in the finance area, or the other areas would fall under our jurisdiction and posting for interims and doing all the kinds of things that you normally would do. Some of it is contractual, some of it is bids, some of it is going through that process because it's prescribed in a contract. However, for the superintendent, it is set aside in Ohio Revised Code that the Board of Education is responsible for that, and the treasurer, and those are the sections in the Ohio Revised Code that does that. So again, the superintendent and treasurer are the only positions explicitly set aside by the law saying that the board has that responsibility. And again, the rest of the district and staff are under our jurisdiction. So that is one thing that changes the conversation. And so I think it's important to start with that piece. So interim searches that happen, and they happen regularly, and they've happened here, and we'll talk about those and how has boards of education in Perrysburg, and we have a number of board members that are in the audience, so they can vouch for this since they went through this. But generally, there are different paths into getting into an interim position. But typically, we're talking about there isn't a public posting when it comes to interim treasurer superintendent positions. The prospective candidates that you're dealing with are typically working outside public education. So when you're posting for an interim position, rarely do you have a sitting treasurer or superintendent who's under contract with another district willing to leave that position for months or a one-year contract. So that creates a little bit of a barrier where other positions, people will in fact do that, because if they hang in there, a position becomes available, you might be able to slide into that position. These positions are not that way. Typically, the folks who are candidates are successful administrators, either as a treasurer or superintendent, that are outside. They're not working in a school environment. They might have jobs in private sector or working in partnership with universities or other types of roles. So posting the position automatically creates an environment where you're asking them to submit a letter of interest, a resume, and then that becomes a public record, and then everyone knows that these are a few people that have applied. And then that opens them up, being in the public sector, private sector, and crossing back over. People might look at them a little differently because of their relationships in their current roles. So that can have a very chilling effect on people who are outside of education in terms of making that ask. So typically what happens is there is a net that is cast by board members, by administrators, seeking individuals who are out there. And so you're looking for people that have done the job, people who are successful, and most importantly as well, have the ability and capacity to do this. It's a full-time job plus. So that doesn't always lend itself to the normal process if we were putting out a posting for a new or an interim transportation director. So this is a very different kind of situation for all of these reasons. Hiring an interim, because posting a position now, and we'll talk more specifically about a vacancy, a permanent vacancy in that process. But typically, boards will choose to have an interim because it allows the district to continue to operate. It allows the board to take a breath and begin the process of evaluating and engaging with the community, saying, what is it that we need, and having a lengthy conversation about the qualities that the board desires in either a treasurer or superintendent. So the process that we have followed in the past in Perrysburg with the most recent interim positions really went through the similar process to what we're using now. And this might be triggering to some people who are board members in the audience, but in 2016, we didn't have a treasurer. And the first thing the Board of Education did was meet and began to say, we need to get somebody here as soon as possible to be a treasurer. Because, again, according to the law, there were things that had to happen that you needed somebody with a treasurer's license. So the board, after meeting an executive session, met with me and said, you need to help find somebody, and we need somebody now so we can begin to sign checks and authorize payroll. That sent me to Sylvania. And if you notice in this article, they met on a Sunday to enable this to happen. So there wasn't a posting, there wasn't a search, it was we need to do this. And that bought us time to begin to have a conversation about, can we find somebody who is out there who can be the interim for a little bit longer while we assess and we can begin to examine. And we began to ask for names. And at that point in time, we had the Sylvania treasurer who was helping us out. And then the board decided no posting again, but who's out there, what names do you know? And they authorized 2 board members to meet with a couple candidates to have a conversation, and then that person then was recommended to the board. So Mr. Smith, who spoke earlier, remembers that he was part of that interview committee that was not public. It was he was one of the people that interviewed. I brought the people from the front door in the evening up to the room where he and another board member were, and they selected Lisa Cresamano, who served as the interim until we were able to hire a full-time person, Pam Harrington, who served. So when Pam left, same kind of situation. Who do we find? And so you recall in 2021, we hired John Scott, who was an interim treasurer. There wasn't a posting. This situation, we were working with, ourselves, trying to find local candidates who could serve as the interim, but also the board had engaged with a search firm, and we asked them if they knew anybody, because the pool for superintendents and treasurers is not very deep for interim purposes. And you recall John Scott was retired treasurer, had done this for many years, lived east of Cleveland, rented a hotel here 3 nights. His wife drove him. And so he filled in until we hired Mr. Dreyer. So taking a step back and saying, okay, is this the first time we've had an interim situation involving one of the 2 boards, one of the 2 positions the board is responsible for? The answer is, well, yes. And how did we handle those situations? Those have been done very similar to the way that the board has conducted this, and trying to find a qualified person to step in to allow the board and the community to take a breath and to consider what the next steps are. So this isn't really even breaking new ground in terms of how past boards, and they're here so they can vouch for this, and how we've operated. When I came to Perrysburg in 2007, the superintendent was leaving, retiring and moving into another district. But the superintendent, when he stepped in, there was an interim. It was Bob Pfefferly, and Bob was here for 6 months. And at that time, Bob was a retired Oregon superintendent, had just retired from Oregon. Phone call was made, can you do this? Can you fill in? And twisted his arm, and he did. So that was the last superintendent interim that we had, was Bob Pfefferly, going back to the early 2000s. And he was a retired, very capable, an excellent superintendent. So that's how interim searches are done. And so it comes down to the timing, what the pool is, and who do you know. And it is also, as we showed different examples, about casting that net, making phone calls, getting names, running it down, and doing that, posting the position. There are instances where districts have done that. However, getting candidates in your region to apply when they may have other relationships, that if their bosses are reading about it in the paper, can be very challenging and disruptive, and they're not going to do that. And frankly, if they're retired and they're wanting to be considered, they have a body of work that boards can look at and decide, and they don't want to go through this permanent search process, which is months, and so we'll go through that. So the vacancy process, which this isn't, again, this is about.
We pause here before we get into the permanent piece, because I think, I just want to pick up the story here, and when you use the word rapid, I think when you talk about the timing, one of the biggest constraints we had is that we were looking at a week before, less than a week before teachers arrived, and the week before school started. So I want to say that when we first spoke, that what I heard was that we have a succession plan, and It was that Ms. Price would move into that role, but it certainly left this huge gaping hole where she was. So then the conversation was, well, who to then move into that role, which of course left another huge gaping hole. And we had to figure out how to fill in that person. And so that would have been an incredibly disruptive plan for this school year. And then the thought was that all of those people would then shift back into their existing roles. It certainly was a plan we were considering, I considered to be the front-running one until 3 days before our work session. Mr. Hostler was offered the job on Saturday. On Saturday, Sunday, we all found out about it. On Monday, and the conversation up to that point was, we can see about some retired folks, but we can't identify anybody that actually is available and has experience in a district our size. I think that was a really big concern for us. Available after August 1st, and that would be willing to come here for really 1 year as the interim contract. And oh, by the way, we have a crucial levy on the ballot in November, that they would be willing to take on not only that informational sharing, but then the consequences of whatever happens in November. So as we kind of moved through this, it was going to be the internal, and we had a couple names, but nobody that was really rising to the top. And then on Sunday, I think I heard for the first time that Dr. Anstead was available. I want to say that every time up to this point that names had been discussed, that Dr. Anstead's name had always come up, except in one case, which I'll say. And in every case, people said, but I don't think she's going to be available. Mr. Hostler was the only one that did not share Katie Anstead's name when we were running through the litanies. And I went back to him later and said, do you have an issue with Dr. Anstead? Because everybody else seems to want Dr. Anstead, and you did not mention her. Do you need to tell me something? And his answer was, no, I don't think she's available. That's why I didn't mention it to you. So we found out the day after Mr. Hostler was offered the job at OSBA, through that informal network that the administration had, and then I know some of you were starting to network as well. Dr. Anstead's name actually came as an available option. And at that point, I called Brooke the next day on Monday, because I wanted to be sure that she was okay with this plan, and it was really clear to me in that conversation that she was really good with this plan, and excited about working with Dr. Anstead, and recognized that the shifting of everyone for that one school year and then shifting back would have been very difficult. With Brooke's blessing, I called Katie on Dr. Anstead on Monday. I looked it up at 5. We started our conversation at 4:54 on Monday evening, and it is her name along with the internal option that we brought to executive session at that work session. So that is how quickly and rapid. I went from Saturday sure that we were going to do the internal option to Sunday finding out that we had really who the others were saying was the most qualified person that could jump in and do this job, which is immense and difficult and complicated, that I heard sometime Sunday evening that this was even a possibility. I wrote down the word thrilled when I was talking with Brooke, that she sounded thrilled that Dr. Anstead was willing to do this. I just want to raise that. I think that that was a bit of a blur for me. I think it was a bit of a blur for us, but it's been a huge blessing to know that as we start the school year that we have someone in place. And that's, I think, the other piece, that rapid, maybe we could have gone out and looked, but Dr. Anstead has unraveled her work life in order to come and serve our district in this interim role. But where she teaches, classes started today, I believe. orientation and all the pre-stuff was last week. If we were not going to be able to confirm that we wanted to work with her over this next year, rightly so, she was kind of unwilling to unravel that life that she already had. And so the rapid timing of the beginning of the school year and the college school year have led us to today. And so I want to put that out. I think, again, things have been moving very quickly, and I want to make sure everyone on the board, if we have any questions or any discussion that we want to have about this process before we consider the contract. And if there is no discussion, then I do want to.
I would like to have a discussion about this. Couple of points. First of all, we are in a very delicate situation within our district because, I mean, as we can see by the levies and bond issues that we have lost, we have lost or do not have the trust of our constituents. We need to remember that we are public servants of this community. We need to make sure that when we do anything, that we are taking steps to rebuild that trust, and we are going above and beyond what is being asked of us. Even if we don't feel we have the time, if we feel that we are exhausted, we need to go the distance. It is important that we ask, even if we think we know the answer. We need to show proof of just action. There needs to be transparency. We were handed a clean slate to do with as our public wants. We need to make sure that we put deep thought into what we're doing and not just take the easy and the instantaneous fix. I know what happens generally with an interim superintendent search. Been there, done that. And I know what is typically done. But at this time, I do not feel that Perrysburg falls in the general or typical spot. We have a very, very important levy to pass in November. And I think that we missed some steps that we dearly need to take to ensure that we pass this levy. I hope I'm proved wrong in November, but I am very uneasy that we skipped some steps that we should have taken. I think, yes, timing was difficult, but again, it was important that we ensure to our public that we looked at all the avenues, even if it was for a short time. I also believe in the leaders in this district, and I believe that they can step up when things do get difficult, when people leave. That's what they've been trained to do. They know that if they're the second in command, the third in command, that is part of their job. They will have to step up sometimes, whether they want to or not, and sometimes in emergency conditions. When it comes to the district of our size and who steps in next, again, from experience, I have seen other superintendents mentor new superintendents in large districts, and they are in a small district, but they are well known, whether it's the number of years, the experience of just different things that happen in their district. I think we totally missed the mark on this one. And like I said, I dearly hope that we are not paying for this in November.
A couple questions, if I may. You make mention that you're familiar with or you're aware of interim searches. That's, I assume, your time on Genoa? Or what,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean, what other interim searches have you been a part of?
It was while at Genoa.
Okay. And what were the results of that, or what was that process? Or?
We ended up talking them into staying until the end of the school year to cover stuff, and then moved on with the search.
Talk to the current, or the person that was in place. Probably not much chance of that, Mr. Hustler.
No.
I tried.
Okay, thank you. When we think about, I'd probably put a little bit more concern on a leadership vacuum when a school is getting ready to open in the midst of $6 million worth of cuts that have yet to really be seen in this community, redistricting of the elementary schools, which seems to be going well. Congratulations to the administration on that. But, you know, a lot of unknowns as of a week ago before the schools are opening. You know, again, not trying to find the solution, which we did here, that is least disruptive is appealing to me, but I'm wondering from your perspective, how long would you have been willing to play out a full interim, an unusual and full interim search process? A week, 2 weeks, a month? How long
I think having opened up the market for a week in terms of getting in applications or anyone who wanted to say, hey, I'm throwing my hat in the ring, that's totally acceptable because we know that he was probably going to be done at the end of the month. But we needed to show our community that we were looking at this and not just, I mean, I feel that there was a decision made before we even went into executive session. I've gone back and I've looked in my emails to see if I missed something, if I missed a phone call or a text, and I don't see anything.
I think, I'm not sure about that. I think Ms. Roland Miller laid out kind of the timeline and how everything rolled out pretty well, but okay, you know, we can't.
Well, I mean, the discussion was held in the exec session as to which option we wanted to pursue and why we wanted to pursue it. And we came out of that executive session at that time unanimous with the direction we wanted to take. I think
It seemed like there was a bit of back channeling to challenge some of those conclusions too, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what happened after that executive session is what becomes unclear about how decisions were being made. But I think for me, it's in every organization or that I've seen, interim searches happen exactly the way they happened here, which is through informal networking in the church. There is not a full search for an interim usually. It's you talk, there's a couple people that talk that know people. You identify who's available. You identify often, I think, as we are in this case, who the best candidate was, even when we didn't know that she was available. That's how churches do it. In nonprofits, the board, somebody on the board knows somebody, and that's who fills in as interim, and that's what happens in businesses. So I feel like you said that steps were missed, but for me, the step of a search was never one that I expected would happen in an interim process. Now, what happened after our executive session is that there was some questions as whether or not we should do a search. But as I pointed out, at that point, we risked the best candidate that we had, that anyone had even come up with, as well as there wasn't support to call an emergency special meeting to reopen this. There wasn't, there were no two board members willing, that were up for calling a board to try to reverse the decision that we had already come to.
Were we instructed to come to the executive session with candidates? Or was it more of the process of what was going to go on?
I don't know that I'm comfortable talking about the particulars of what happened in an executive session.
I'm not saying
We
what happened
can-
what
certainly
were
if
we
you're
asked
willing
to
to
do
call for an
before coming
executive
to it?
session
Said
right
we would
now.
be talking about the interim superintendent. You looked through the emails. I don't know exactly the language I used. I said there were 3 items related to personnel that we would be covering under executive session. I listed them, and one of them was the interim superintendent. And again, we all came out of that meeting in full agreement at that point of what we would do.
Well, I know I can't comment on what was said in executive session, but I think my thoughts on where we were going were expressed.
I came out of that executive session with the impression that we were all on the same page. So that,
Same. Yeah, I'm just trying to think through, what the quote thoughtful process would look like in a week's timing. I mean, I'm presuming there's writing a job description, getting input on the job description, posting the job description, getting an inventory of candidates, vetting the candidates in a way that doesn't violate open meeting requirements, meeting to talk about then the candidates, negotiating a contract with the candidates, getting them to accept, introducing them, getting them to clear their life. And I do a bit of this in my other life, and I don't see how that happens in a week.
I think what's
Feels like a month.
unusual about this process, it really does reflect back to 2016 when we needed a treasurer yesterday. We were looking at payroll. Y'all remind me if I'm not remembering this quite exactly, but we were looking at the possibility of payroll not being done. It was a question of intense timing, which necessitated the story as you told it, Mr. Hostler. And this was a similar thing. This wasn't a retirement that could be put on hold. This wasn't a boo-boo knee that would cause you to not be with us or something along that line that you could do from home as much as possible. This is a massive job change, and I think it was, and the timing of it, as you pointed out, Susan, with it being at the beginning of school, it wasn't just us. We were looking at our whole staff, our whole district, our students, our families, that all of a sudden we were a rudderless ship. And how were we going to fill that? And as I understood it, and Ms. Price, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we were told pretty clearly that if we were basically put bamboo shoots under her fingernails, she'd be willing to do it, but she'd really rather stay as assistant superintendent, and because she likes that work. And I thought, okay, all right. And then in walks Katie. And to kick a gift horse in the mouth was not a wise decision at that particular point. There just wasn't the time to do a search. There wasn't the time to do a search properly.
and I guess I want to keep saying there is no real precedent for
yeah.
doing an interim search. So I feel that there were two paths forward. One was to do the interim the way we did it, which is that informal networking that the administrators were already doing. I wasn't involved in that. I do know that there were other names of people named, and many, again, 95% of the time it was, yeah, but they're probably not available. There was one candidate who was identified as being a potential person. That person was contacted and asked if he was interested. And when he found out that Dr. Anstead was willing to serve as interim superintendent, said, well, I would have been willing, but I would pick Dr. Anstead too. I feel like we have this incredible candidate that is incredibly qualified, and in the debate of the process, of going with the process that we normally have gone with and that most districts go with, which is you network, you find the right person, you get them in debating that, we are overlooking the fact that we are having this incredibly qualified person that we are going to be blessed to have as our interim superintendent. So I don't want that to get lost in the midst, is that there was no name that was shared in informal discussions that in any way would have compared to Dr. Anstead. So we can continue to debate what was or what wasn't. I'm just not sure at this point where to go forward with the fact that we had agreed. There were other ideas after that meeting, and I don't know what else to do at this point.
Well, I agree with you. This district is kudos to the process that brought the candidate with the demonstrated skill and the desired will to take this on in a way that's going to be least disruptive to our teachers, to the buildings, to our students immediately. So this has an incredibly high chance for success, and I support the process, and I'll go as far as say I support the candidate.
Yeah, I'll just a couple of comments, right? I don't think there's any clean way to run a process when you're a week out from school starting and you need to find an interim superintendent for a district the size of Perrysburg. And, I think we went through a thoughtful process. Would it have been great to have even more candidates? So I do a lot of hiring in my day job. I always like to see multiple, but I had plenty of time to talk with Dr. Anstead because I didn't know her at all, right? I'm the new guy on the board, so I had no prior experience. The fact that Ms. Price in the back strongly recommended her carried a lot of weight with me, but my interactions also carried a lot of weight because, to be honest, I wasn't going to support a candidate that I hadn't met and had the chance to talk with and understand, and I had that opportunity, and I would have taken that same opportunity had we had other candidates that were available, but from the list we looked at, everybody was not available. So again, I come back to, there's no clean way to do it. As I thought about it, our job is to pick somebody who can come in, help keep the district moving the way it needs to go. Well, we have the opportunity, I liked how you said it in the thing, to breathe and start thinking about how do we start putting a search together for a permanent, because not only is there a levy on the ballot in November, but there's some board seats on the ballot in November as well, and the new board's going to have to hopefully deal with the past levy, but also work with dealing with hiring a permanent superintendent. So we got to get things in shape so that work can happen.
Yeah, and I know that I spoke to a couple different board members, so I always appreciate that during the process. And I believe the name of the superintendent who was retired in Northwest Ohio, I think it came from Laura. I didn't get the name directly, but it was relayed to me. And that's who you were referring to. And I called this candidate, or retired superintendent, laid it out. And they said, I go, can I quote you on that? And the person said, sure. The best option is Katie. She is known. She is outstanding. I'm not saying no, but I would hire Katie if I were you. That's where we are.
Thank you. There's no other discussion. I'd like to continue to move on and talk what Mr. Anderson nicely segued us into, is what the permanent search can kind of look like just from a really high level. Certainly we are already getting questions from people. What are you going to do? When's the search going to be? And this will help lay out just that broader stroke of that process.
So I just grabbed our last, the vacancy in 2016 to give you an idea of, what that looked like. And again, in 2016, We secured an interim, and that person worked with us for the majority of the school year. But we had the vacancy was announced in April. So before that, you are meeting with, you select a search firm, you interview a search firm, and that takes a couple of board meetings to do that. So really, you're talking February, March, and the board members that are here remember that, the special meetings, the process that we used, selected a firm, they began to do this, but the important dates are April 6th, it's posted, final interview, May 26th, and then June 6th, the board votes, and then August 1st, start date. So that is a lengthy process that is demanding the board to not only focus on this, but also you're engaging the community. You're having stakeholder meetings. You are meeting with, and that means the community, the staff, administrators, parents, families. You're collecting information in terms of developing a profile, and any organization that does the searches has this built into that process. I pulled the another treasurer search just from that era, Wood County ESC, and again, September 25th, it was announced. The deadline was October 23rd, November, and then employment, they were hoping by April 5th. So again, we're talking multiple months process, and hiring and securing an interim isn't this. So I think people that might be looking at this are conflating the two different the different process, because you don't typically, with interims are very different. So the search firm option, so this is getting into the why boards select search firms. One is the confidentiality to possible candidates. So if a board decides to run their search, which you don't see very often when it comes to treasurer and superintendent, you have people that are applying directly to the board. In real time, the public can do public records requests and get the names of the candidates before the board even screens them. So if you're a high quality superintendent or treasurer in a school district, and you're considering applying and a board is conducting its own search and you have to apply to them directly, that's a concern, frankly, because you're trusting your personal information gets back to your community, and it can create significant problems for you before you even had an interview. So having a search firm is, an ability to have a pool, to have conversations, to recruit in a way that doesn't have a chilling effect on the number of applicants, because in these two positions, there aren't a large number of applicants, and you need to try to make this an attractive position, attractive district to get that. When candidates have questions about the district, it's tough to go to which board member do you speak to ask questions that they might not want the board to know about, and search firms are very good at measuring that. So the fact that there are firms that buffer is very important. The reference checks, credentials, they are doing that because the board is busy running the district and gathering feedback as to what qualities are there. So again, actively recruit top talent. They've seen some of these candidates. They're establishing into that network, and they have clear timelines, and they will keep the board to those timelines, and that's really important. And then the objectivity, they don't have a dog in the fight. Their job is to get their dance card full and bring you the best candidates, and then you pick. And they know about the market and handling that support, and when things go sideways, and sometimes in searches they do. And I think that's important. There's a couple of big firms that are out there when it comes to searches. So K-12, they do treasurers and superintendent searches. I don't think they do treasurer searches anymore.
Right now, they're not doing treasurers because they can't get treasurers.
Yeah.
And
There you go.
So
I want
Yeah,
to
go
reinforce
ahead.
Tom said, one of the things, the strength of like K-12 and finding leaders is they go out and look for people who they think are a good fit, not just who apply. And that's their strength, because they know everybody, in the state. And they'll go, oh, I know this superintendent over here is ready for a new challenge. And they'll talk to them, hey, Perrysburg might be a good fit for you. Will you apply? Where they might not apply otherwise. So that's another strength. Treasurers right now is different. There's at least 12 vacancies around the state, about 20 interim treasurers. So it's a different world right now because the pool is very, very, very thin. And it's just, no one wants to take these jobs.
Yeah. No, thanks for that. And so K-12, these are the 6 steps that they use. So that's one common theme that I just wanted, again, remind the public that finding the permanent is that process of transparency. It is that process of engagement. It is that process of what are the qualities that we're seeking in the next leader. And you can see here what they do, and they have a profile, they talk to the community, they publish that, they go out, recruit. Finding leaders is mentioned, they're players as well. And again, these are the 5 different phases that they work on in terms of filling. OSBA is also a player in searches. They look at, again, 7 steps here with what they do in developing that planning and profile, focus groups, screening, interviews. All those, I think, are essential to that process. So I wanted to, those are 3 of the bigger players. And I think, that what is happening now is consistent with what we've done in the past. And we're gearing up for that kind of a process, I'm assuming, with the board as they look at the future, so.
Yeah, and so that determining that process and starting to look at how we want to do that will certainly be on our agendas in the very near coming months, because it's not something we can wait to really start to get into place till next year. We're going to need to be doing some of that work right now. So I appreciate that overview and sharing that with us. Any other questions or comments before we move on into 7? Right. So in 7, we have an employment of the interim superintendent. There is a resolution to approve, which approves the contract. Again, I just want to say how thankful I am that Dr. Anstead has literally rearranged her life in order to come back and serve this district. I really do feel that, that she's meant to be here at this time. I know when she spoke with me, she was not interested in coming with in working with our great board, or necessarily coming back into a time period where there was a levy on the ballot, but she is coming back because of her deep dedication and care for the staff and for this district and the students that she served for almost 2 decades prior. So I am just so grateful for her raising her hand and saying, yes, I can do this. I don't know if there's, I guess we should have a motion to approve and then further discussion.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Bennington, Ms. Larimer, I'd like some discussion, other discussion. Any other discussion? Okay, I think we've all shared. If no other discussion, then Mr. Drewer, roll call to approve the authorization to execute employment agreement.
Mr. Bennington.
Yes.
Ms. Larimer.
Yes.
Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
Ms. Minke.
No.
Ms. Rowland Miller.
Yes. We move into the treasurer's report. Mr. Drewer.
Congratulations, Katie.
Oh,
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Welcome.
All right.
One moment, Mr. Drewer. Again, if the media, I ask that all conversations take place outside this room. Just a reminder.
All right, well, we're 1 month into the fiscal year, and I'll get to that in a minute, but I've got the floor, and you didn't ask my opinion, but you're going to get it anyway. This was nice being contrary. I need to pile on just a little bit. Tom, this Pepsi's for you. It's an inside joke. You got Coke at this end and Pepsi at that end, so it's a fair compromise, yes. I also want to say it's been a pleasure working with Tom the last 4 years. The most important relationship, I said that the treasurer is the superintendent. And as we said, we need each other to do our jobs well. The board's important, but I have to work with the superintendent every day, and it's very important. And the other thing I want to say, from my side of the hallway, despite what some people in the public may say, every decision I've seen made, this decision has been made with the highest levels of integrity, honesty, forthrightness, and considering all sides. And you're not going to please everyone, but I believe the students have always been kept first in these decisions. And not everyone sees all that. Not everyone can be on the inside, but I felt very privileged, and I can tell you the reputation across the state is well earned, and I appreciate working with Tom, and good luck, and OSBA needs you.
Oh, thanks.
And I know I'll miss you. And Katie, welcome aboard. She'll figure out as I storm into her office once in a while. Tom would call me, I'd ignore his call and walk across the hall. So I prefer face-to-face over the phone call. But with Sarge Hannah, she's out of her desk. It doesn't stop me. We're good to go. But I applaud the board's decision on the interim, having been in your place before. I get it. It's tough, but you're selecting a known entity of the highest quality and qualifications who, the ship is sailing, so you're going to hand the wheel over in mid-sail, and I think you've done a great job on this. And more importantly, or just as importantly, it gives you time to make a considered decision on the permanent choice. You don't have to rush that at this point. So, and anyway, that's my 2 cents, and I will move on to what you're paying me to talk about. So, 1 month in this fiscal year, not a whole lot. It's hard to see, and there's a little diamond there about the 30 million mark. That's our cash balance at the end of July. So we're below where we were the last 2 fiscal years, and obviously that's where we expected with the rejection of the levy in November. Only 1 month's worth of data, but I want to elaborate on a couple things and trends that we're seeing and looking ahead a little bit. We're on 116 true cash days. So that, by the way, I'm doing this calculation in all transparency a little bit differently. I in the past have not included outstanding purchase orders in that. So the 116 days means it's our cash balance minus outstanding purchase orders. Those are things that are essentially that are encumbered, right? And last year at this time we were 122 days, to put it in perspective. The other thing you can't see here, the circle's in the way, but our estimated cash cost per day essentially year over year dropped. And that's because of the reductions and stuff that our spending per day is less, despite inflationary increases in other areas. Revenue for the month year over year are down 20%, and expenses are up 3.3%. And I'll just hit on a couple of things real quick. Real estate taxes, at the time of the end of July, we'd gotten one tax advance, about $2.4 million less than last year. I can tell you we got our tax settlement last week, and it shows the full $6 million less than last year. The spring was a little bit muted because of a high number of delinquencies that were recovered, but essentially delinquencies are very, very low. Our county does a great job of getting delinquencies caught up, and we are. So just know that if you look at the actual total 41.7 versus 35.8, that's a true reflection of the levy. And income tax, we got our first income tax payment. We're up 3.1% year over year. It's a good sign for the economy. On the expense side, let me back up a little bit. I want to talk just about salaries for a second, even though I'm not really highlighting it. And it's in the presentation, you'll see in a minute. You'll notice salaries, it's hard to compare year to year like this, because July, 2 things are still happening. Our classified contracts, if you will, are July 1st to June 30th. So on July 1st, if they go up a step on the salary schedule or they get a base increase, that starts July 1. Administrators, now administrators' salaries are frozen, so we don't see anything here. Administrators are August 1st to July 30th. So the three reductions in administrative positions won't show up until, through this month, because that's the first time they're off the payroll. And then teaching and certified positions are September 1st to August 30th. That's the bulk of our savings. So that's what they'll start showing up in September. So just know that those contracts, so when you reduce a position, a teaching position, you save 10 months in one fiscal year and 2 months in the next fiscal year. So sometimes it's different versus the private sector where your fiscal year lines up with all these. In our case, it doesn't. So just kind of heads up as we watch it going forward. And also want to acknowledge on the classified side, our biggest reductions were in custodians, and they already happened prior to the new fiscal year, right? We had to in January start reducing building access because we didn't have custodians, positions that we were looking at eliminating anyway, but when they left, we didn't fill them because it didn't make sense to fill a position for 4 or 5 months and then riff it again. Right now, we're only 1 month in. The only place, I don't call it a concern, just purchase services are running a little bit higher than expected, and we'll dig into that. Sometimes that's just the timing of contracts, particularly with special education, and those and some subscriptions for software and those things. We'll keep an eye on that. So that's really the only concern. So we're only 1 month in. 1 point doesn't make a trend, right, Mr. Anderson? Just we'll keep working through that. Any questions on July? Okay. And just a couple information items, a lot going on. This is a very, people think of summer being off time, we get back to school. Well, for my office, we get busy right now because audit started. We got our list from the auditor, all the stuff that they want. And there's some additional items like to add every year. They're auditing things that they didn't check in years past. They're not always fiscal either. They're going to be asking for some stuff. For example, a couple years ago, they added college credit plus stuff, that kind of thing. Also at this time, we got the 3-year forecast. I'm still going to work on doing a 5-year forecast, but we're only submitting a 3-year forecast. And that has to be done by October. But in the future years, it's got to be done in August. And then we've got permanent appropriations and due in September. So my plan right now is, because the forecast and the permanent appropriations have to be, essentially have to match, it's all happening at one time. So at the September board meeting, you'll get the new 3-year forecast, which is only updated with a couple months worth of data, and you'll get permanent appropriations at that time. And of course, we're wrapping up the fiscal 25 grants that carry on through August. So a lot of stuff happening all at once. That's none of it's singularly difficult. Just all piles on, and the forecast. Adding the forecast in on top of this was probably it's not the camel that breaks the straw that breaks the camel's back, but the timing's unfortunate. Because we're going to update the forecast, and then we have the levy 2 months later, right? That's the logic. And on top of this, the property tax group at the state level is meeting, and they're really looking at the county budget commission, tax budget commissions, their roles and responsibilities. So in theory, in September, October, I'll be meeting with them to justify them collecting our taxes. And that's all I have.
Questions for Mr. Drewer?
I want to make a comment, and this has to do with something that we talked about during Finance Committee, because it has changed, and he only has to have a 3-year forecast out there. I did ask Randy if we were staying with the 5-year forecast, in which, yes, he is staying with that. And that's important for the board because we need to be able to look long range and make sure that we have what we need to make it through the number of years that we need. For example, we're going for a levy for 5 years. It would be silly of us not to have a 5-year forecast out there. Going forward, that's, I believe, something that as Finance Committee, we will demand that that's done, even though the state says we only need 3 years.
Yeah, and in fact, I do keep actually an informal outside the system of 10 years, because looking at the levy cycles, the 5, obviously, farther out you get, I'm doing percentages and not, but it's still at least be able to model it, because 3 years is just, while it matches the biennium, it doesn't match the levy cycle. And Ms. Minke's exactly right, so.
Anything else from the meeting?
January was actually a quick meeting. I think everybody sat through pretty much word for word what that meeting was, so.
I will make one comment, just as a heads up, and I'll talk about it in finance briefly, is we have our severance fund, that 035 fund, that the board's had the foresight to put $300,000 a year in for the last 4 years. Based on Mr. Christie's projections on retirements, there's a good chance we'll wipe that fund out in the spring. So it'll do exactly what we expected. We built up a little bit of a balance in there. It'll take it down to lower levels. So it's just kind of a heads up as we get there. We talk about what is the right balance to maintain in it, and this is why we built up a balance for that case.
Thank you. In 8.4, I asked Mr. Drewer and Mr. Hostler to also just put a pretty quick high-level reminder. We've mentioned a couple times that we're moving into actually seeing reductions start to take effect in the classroom as students and staff and especially teachers return. The impact on the students is sometimes more easily seen than the impact on the teachers and the staff. And I think it's just a good reminder for every position cut, those responsibilities are being picked up by somebody else. It's not that work magically went away in our district. And so I just asked them to put together this presentation.
And before you be point of order, we need to do 8.2.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I usually like to skip over
You
that.
do like to skip over this part.
I feel hurt.
So we need to, in 8.2, approve the financial report. Thank you, Mr. Bennington. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Bennington, Ms. Menke, Mr. Drewer, roll call.
Mr. Bennington.
Yes.
Ms. Minke.
Yes.
Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
Ms. Larimer.
Yes.
Ms. Rowland Miller.
Yes. Okay, now with my great intro out of the way, 8.4 to Mr. Hostler and Mr. Drewer.
Right. And we'll move quickly through this, but I think it's just an important reminder. Randy, this underscores what Randy shared during his presentation when we're talking about how the budget works, the dates where these things will be impacted in the budget, and you'll begin to see those changes. So, why are we here? We had operational levy in 2024 that was rejected by voters. The good news is we had a levy in March that was passed by the highest level of support, since 1960. So I think that the fact that that happened and the fact that we're moving in a very positive direction across all levels, I think is very important to keep in mind. So, because that is a significant change, but we are on the ballot in November, and it is a high stakes levy. And so that is something that we understand, because without any additional funds, we will be looking to make further reductions. And it doesn't matter who sits in this chair, and it doesn't matter who sits in these chairs. The fact of the matter is, as Randy likes to point out to me every once in a while when he barges into my office, the numbers are the numbers, and that's what we have to react to. So timing matters, and Randy really did a nice job of looking at this, because the reductions, we're still, the contract won't be fully impacted. The contracts of individuals who are gone won't be fully impacted until, we start making the reports in the future months. So that's when you'll begin to see those things. And I think that the looking at September, looking at October, Those are the contracts when increases are there. So you have two things that are happening which are kind of challenging. You have fewer positions that are in the district, so you see those dollars coming off. At the same time, we are in the middle of contract years, and there are negotiated agreements well below the cost of living, but those increases are hitting the same time positions are coming off. So it's not static where you would be able to say these 5 positions go away, and you can see dollar for dollar that in Randy's budget presentation, because at the same time those positions are going away, you're seeing people going up a step. And you're seeing people, getting that raise, except those administrators and exempted staff who aren't. In that category, you would definitely see that. But with the other categories, which is the bulk of our employees, you're seeing this mixture of fewer positions, but the raises are still taking place. So,
Can you go back, because this was my mistake
Yep.
that I threw in there. Classified should read administrative, because classified have already taken effect. So that was. as we were creating this.
Classified and exempt would have been July 1st. Administrative is August 1st.
Yeah.
And tonight you are voting on one of those, the education attainment moves people on to a different salary, teachers on it. So that's another one that adds in there, which is a little bit less predictable year to year. And just to put it in perspective, our total salary budget was $45.4 million. Certified is $33.1 million of it. So just recognize that the biggest bulk of that is certified staff, and then classified and exempt and administrator the third. And then we even still have, for example, our substitute employees across this is about $1 million a year. So they're big dollars, and so lots of moving parts. Now, we've taken some, steps. Don has taken some steps on the salaries of substitutes and scheduling of PD days and stuff like that to reduce the cost of subs, but it's something, it's a hidden cost that is not quite as visible as salaries and other kind of things.
So 57 positions were eliminated, and we did the best that we could to carve those out of areas away from the classroom. But at the end of the day, you're beginning to feel those larger class sizes. We had built into the budget, because of our incremental levy, additional staff to offset student growth. And then we have some very valuable programming that we're not going to be able to bring back. So that's something that parents and others are beginning to find out. The reduced opportunities for students. And we also understand getting into transportation. We're hearing from families that aren't always paying attention to what's taking place, but we have longer self-transport zones or walk areas than we've had before. And so people are beginning to feel these things. The fees to families coming back to school a little more costly, and that's something that the board wrestled with as we began to do that. We have a way to help offset those costs to families that might struggle with, their child wants to be involved in an activity and they don't have the funds to do it. And we're very fortunate, a very giving community, and there's opportunities here for folks to do that. But at the high school, in summary, we have fewer electives, reduced music opportunities, activities. And you can kind of see the list here. I'm not going to read it, but in every level, there is an impact that is felt. And with this next levy, very soon the board will be discussing what happens if that is rejected. And this list will grow. Because as Randy likes to point out when he bursts into my office, those are the numbers. And hiring freeze, that as people move into the district, that ability to hire that fourth teacher, it's not there. And so those kind of conversations will have an impact on what we're able to do. And then in 2025, this November, it depends, will we be moving forward with, further reductions? And, certainly it's a decision point for the community in terms of what they value and the precious resource that our school district is, can we protect it? And that's really what this levy is shaping up to be a conversation about. So we have more information about, informational about the levy, and, you know, just wanted to touch on those things.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion about that? Okay. We move into our other committee meetings. We have community engagement. We met back last Tuesday on the 12th. We had a great presentation, as Ms. Mankey and I are newer to these seats. We got a good overview of the school's foundation, which some of you were around for more of the foundation of. And I think I had asked that this areas of support, I think so often in our community that we think development is Perrysburg Schools Foundation. But the work that Mr. Abke and that staff do is so much broader as the areas of support for all entry points into our district in terms of people that want to provide support, whether it's through the booster PTOs, through alumni, you know, directly into the district ways of support, and then Perrysburg Schools Foundation. And I found that visual just really helpful. You know, one of the things that I also thought was really helpful was hearing how so many of the grants that are provided through Perrysburg Schools Foundation really are seen as part of our strategic plan to retain our staff, to make wanting to be in this district you know, something that they still want to do, and some of those grants to do special opportunities, whether it's trips or studies, that then of course benefit our students in the classroom, but it's a great way to also tie in with our strategic plan for that. So that they were some of the things that I found really helpful about that presentation from Mr. Abke. We also talked about our communications plans. We're kind of seeing communications and especially community engagement from the board as kind of a 3-lane highway right now. And one of those highways is really just us going to others, whether it be, you know, we've talked about Saturday morning coffees. I'll certainly turn it over to Ms. Mankey, and hopefully we can get that going now. We received that email from Hannah. That was kind of pre-scheduled a couple months ago of we had been doing those events at the library, just shifting those more into board members being available and without necessarily a topic or a presentation. So that was another possibility. And then I think going out and offering to, you know, just show up at a booster meeting, at, you know, a PTO meeting to say, we're here, you can ignore us, you can ask us questions, but that's really distinct from some of the informational pieces that we'll also be doing about levies. So I guess I'd like to have a little bit of discussion about what we're willing, kind of what we're able and willing to do right now, whether it's the Saturday morning during the week of. Again, the dates that Hannah sent out were more the week of, sometime that week that you could schedule yourself to be available. I have that list somewhere that I can't find.
I've got it, August
There it
25th,
is.
September 8th.
Yeah, so that's sometime during the week that a board member would take a week, pick a date to be available and where, and I think that
Oh,
was
okay.
more, you know, during the day or during the evening, the way that we had done, that Mr. Hostler, Mr. Juror, a lot of the administrators had done those drop-in-it-way times was the idea. So open for
Can I give my
discussion.
thoughts on this? I would like to see us, especially here within the first couple of weeks, for us to each sign up for a day and hit the evening activities in terms of if there's a PTO meeting at Frank, go introduce yourself, and just let them know that we are here. We want to listen. We want to hear what they have to say. As much as I attended the meetings that we had at the libraries and at our facilities, let's face it, we didn't really see very much participation, and that's one of the things that we talked about with the community engagement is we've left it open for people to come to us Now it's time for us to go to the public and really just interact with them and engage and not just wait for them. We have to do the stepping up.
Yeah, I'm gonna build off of that, and I agree with you there. That interests me. I mean, I'm willing to do what, the board calls to do, be it, do an open session at the Way Library or whatever, but I am more interested in going to organizations, be it boosters or community organizations, the Exchange Club, Rotary, Chamber of Commerce, whatever else is out there, to help tell our story and make introductions and do that networking. That's what interests me.
Okay, so how, we do have a list of the district support organizations. Is that something, we could put that out and people could pick and choose which ones they want to reach out to see if it would be okay to attend a meeting and it would be available?
It would be lovely, and I know this would be something for Hannah, and I'm sorry to put this on her, but if we could have a listing of each of the buildings' activities that are going on after school for this next month, that would be ideal. So we can just say, hey, okay, I've got this one, you've got that one. Because I'm sure with all the schools that we have, we're going to have more than one activity a night, and as much as we try, we cannot be at two places at once.
Well, and as far, yeah. I'm also, as far as, I'd rather be invited than just, be forced upon. So I think it's more opening, making the offer and seeing what comes of that offer.
Yeah, I think to make that contact, say, hey, I'd be available and would love to come to your meetings. I think to make that contact and then find out what's most appropriate for that group. So I think we're talking about.
Having been involved in these groups, they're busy
Yeah.
folks, and they should care more about the students and not so much us.
Yeah.
But
Again, and attending is different than us need to be on the agenda. I think there's two different things we're talking about now. One is getting in touch with these different groups, which I'm hearing some willingness to do, so I can work with the staff in getting that out. The other is evening activities. I know, and I'm not recommending, like there's one district where every board member, they have 5 buildings and 5 board members, and each board member picks a building and tries to attend as many of their activities. I think that's a little beyond, they were smaller. That's a little beyond our scope with the number of buildings and activities that we have, but.
I'll take Union.
You'll take the preschool with the cute kids. Yeah, Commodore, yeah, no, that doesn't work. Yeah, taking the high school is a lot different than, for instance, taking the elementary. I've certainly tried to attend, but I think one of the things that we're certainly raising is the question, how do we know what activities are going on? I know their master calendar is kind of somewhere in that website. Every once in a while I can find it. Maybe it's more that we each commit to attend X number of activities, because it may be that we are available and want to attend the same activity too. I'm not, how do we want to go about that one?
So are you saying that there might be multiple ones of us during a particular week, or maybe a board member for the week that they signed up are going to try and go to as many that week that they can?
I think to commit to a whole week is beyond what I'm capable of with my schedule, but I think it's more the specific activities. I just think there's so many activities, especially if we start talking athletics in there, that I'm not, we can't get to all of the activities. That would be my question of how we want to handle that.
I'm more focused on hitting the parents to hear what they have to say. And, yes, I do want to, if grandma and grandpa are in the community, or whatever the child support system is, or, just the community members who want to come out and see the football game, yes, I do want to speak to them also. But I'd like to hit especially at the beginning of the school when everybody's getting doing their kickoff of their organization, that's the time to hit them.
Yeah, I agree. I think my mind goes towards more parent organizations, boosters organizations. I think anything beyond that, I mean, we're in the community, we're welcome to go wherever we want and wear the badges and have people approach us. Can't believe that's what people want to do when they're at a basketball game, is talk to us, but.
They don't, but, yeah. So I want to clarify, Ms. Menke, when you said activities, you meant parent organization?
I meant more parent organizations.
I heard activities, which
Yes.
scared me a little bit.
Well, just so y'all know, the week of September 8th is totally out for me. So I put myself down for the 25th, as long as I can get some more coaching as to
I think
where
again,
it could or
that
should go.
That to me is a different, so right now we're talking about us going out to especially parent organizations that support our students. That would be more of a drop-in, available at the library for, that's what we are doing, and maybe there's not an interest in continuing that format. We had talked at least a month ago about the Saturday morning, and I don't know if you can share anything about that.
Yes. We are going to start, I know this is a little bit on the short notice, but we're going to start this Saturday at the Big B's there in the Walt Churchill's Plaza. I don't know the name of the plaza. Sorry. And we had talked about, am I correct, Susan, that it was 9 to 10:30? Because that's why I told him, but I'd get back to him with that.
Okay. I'd have to look back at my notes. That was a
Okay.
long time ago that we had that conversation, so I don't know.
But
So you're looking, so do you have other ones scheduled out then too?
I do. I want to see how this one goes before we move on with the other ones. And also, I think it would be best for us if we skip the weekend of Labor Day, because I think there will be many people out. And
Yeah.
aside from, I'm sure board members have things that they want to do too with their families.
Yeah, we had
so.
talked about a once a month layout. You're thinking more often than
I was
that?
looking at a little bit more often, but,
Okay.
if we want to go once a month instead,
Well, so so is that something you were going to attend on the 23rd?
yes.
Okay. Does anyone want to join Ms. Menke at Big B from 9 to 10:30?
My schedule's not that flexible with this much short notice.
Yeah, I can't do it. Well,
I'm fine. Yeah.
go for it. I guess, yeah, I'm concerned that we really need to get other ones, because I'm just even wondering about the communication that you're going to be sitting at Big B on the 23rd. How do we roll out communication fast enough for that? So I'd like to at least get a couple more so that we can be sharing out those dates further ahead.
Okay.
I think we had originally talked about the second Saturday, because first would catch us off guard and second has a nice alliteration to it, but, so that would be on the 13th. Do you have a place for that, or?
That would be, if I remember correctly from my dates, that would be Flying Joe's.
Okay.
It's phalange. What's phalange?
Flying Joe,
Oh, Flying Joe.
so 9 to 10:30, and that's, I can do that one.
I'm
And
sorry,
what
what
day
the
is that?
second Saturday?
That's Saturday, the 13th. Anyone want to join me?
13th is, oh, no, what am I saying? I'm not going to be here, sorry.
Oh, that's the week of the 8th. Okay, well, I can hang out by myself.
I will check on it.
Chris, okay. All right,
Or coffee for you.
and then you'll work with Ms. Zicker about getting some communication out about those?
Yes.
I guess if, yeah, it sounds like, maybe if we do the combination of the reach out to the booster parent groups, start just kind of being available more to them, that this, the kind of way library thing can kind of rest for a little bit. And maybe that's something we pick up in the winter when it makes sense to be inside the library a lot. I think to be available, Thursdays, we could always look through the fall of being available back on the Commodore lawn on Thursdays. We'll see how that works. But these sound like two good ways to start going. Other ideas or comments about community engagement right now? Then I'll move us into student achievement. Mr. Bennington.
So student achievement meeting was held on August 5th. It was kind of the day after the news about Mr. Hassler broke, so the meeting started out a little flat, I think, but it was having a good discussion. We did a follow-up of our July retreat where we kind of dived into committee expectations and focused on data and how to message the data. It is, how do we leverage data to highlight what is important at the building level for the district, how it ties to the overall strategy for the district. We oftentimes lean a lot on the state report card, but there's data beyond that we need to be able to communicate well to our community. So it was an opening conversation. There's probably more an understanding next meeting, an inventory of what the data is and what our goals are in these discussions and communicating them out. With the, kind of the newly released our policy, the Parental Bill of Rights, Policy 5780, there's, Mr. Schwartzmiller walked us through some work that was done for a flow chart to kind of help the district understand when you've got an issue that falls under the Parental Bill of Rights, I'm trying to pull it up here real quick, versus other policy, let's call them what they are, complaints. Hang on just a second. Kind of a guide for what policy applies when you're looking at 5780 Parental Bill of Rights versus the 9130, the public complaints policy. So everybody in that room likes flowcharts, and another good discussion. Grading Practices Committee Year 2 is getting together to discuss what their goals are going to be for that year. We talked a little bit about changes to the OTES 2.0, which is moot for this meeting since we approved it, I believe, at the work session. So I think those are my notes, the high points from that meeting.
Yep. Sounds good. Other questions?
I would encourage the community to read that policy because I see things on Facebook that this policy proves is not true. So I would really encourage the community to read that policy because it was pretty eye-opening to myself that we actually had that out in writing. So I really strongly urge them to read that.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? Okay, then we'll move into 11 with other, the superintendent committees and other committees in general. Start up with operations.
Operations was a quicker meeting than usual, but just want to clarify something under the transportation notes, and James's notes here are excellent. They let you know what was really going on, but not to be misled, it says down number of routes from last year. That's not because we have a reduction in students. That's because the redistricting is working the way that they wanted it to work. And so we have better routes, less, and more efficient routes, and the addition of the walk zones, that helps too. So I wanted to make sure that that was clear. And this summer, our phenomenal operations team, they took older buses and went out and did body work on them to the point where they couldn't even tell anymore that they were older buses. They repainted things. They got rid of rust and dust. They got rid of, they made the buses look brand new. And kudos to that team that can go out and do that and do that for our students for the longevity of our buses and the care of them. So the rest of it, I felt was pretty explanatory, and I'll let you go on.
All right. Yeah, and I think I attended since Ms. Mankey was out of town. It's always kind of fun to jump in and hear what's going on. I think one of the things that just really struck me is how creatively we approach funding and use of funding, whether it's in food services or different grants that we can get. And I was just excited to hear about some of the things that they're working on. HR, any report?
We didn't have HR.
Yeah, it was canceled.
Perrysburg Schools Foundation.
We did have the Schools Foundation meeting. A lot of discussion about getting back out into the classrooms, make sure teachers are aware of the grant opportunities that are available through PSF. They fund a lot of things for the classrooms, for the teachers. And then they did elect, not we, they elected the new slate of board or directors for the Perrysburg Schools Foundation. So thank you to Kelly for all her years of service, and welcome to Amy Luck, who's going to be picking up the role of president of PSF. So
Excellent.
good stuff.
Yeah, kudos to Kelly, and a job well done there.
Oh, she's awesome.
Absolutely.
She's awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. I don't believe development met because you had met before.
We have a meeting upcoming next month.
Okay. Pupil and student services did not meet beginning of the school year, a little too nutty. We haven't scheduled a policy, but as a warning, that'll be coming up this fall as we do our fall update. Student safety and staff accountability, we did meet. I don't know, Mr. Hassler, if you want to.
So we did meet, and as we indicated last month, we are posting the monthly results of any information that we have received, following the same format that we used in presenting to the public. It is available on the website. So there's a link we have a safety tab, and if you go to student safety and staff accountability, you can see this month's report there, and you know, it'll live there. So.
And we were able to, because we had discussed this at our work session, we were kind of able to take those ideas that we had discussed, and, you know, kind of that separation of how do we continue to encourage, empower. We talked about when staff and training will happen, how to continue to work to raise educational opportunities with the students. We also continue to talk about the best way to have people report in a way that would be fully confidential. We've talked about moving around the order in which we suggest the different avenues for reporting and getting the help and support that our students need. And one of the things that I'm going to be working on with the team is that I offered to do because I like flow charts, is to try to really help people understand that chain of command, kind of along with the student achievement policy flows of where do you go when you have an issue, who's the best person to go to make this more efficient. We continue to, you know, I think maybe one a month, get an email in that's about an issue that really is most appropriate to go directly to a building principal. And so we want to continue to create ways to educate our parents and our students kind of how to get the support and the answers that they need. So we welcomed Ms. Harper onto that group as she takes over as the director of student well-being, student services and well-being. Any other committees that we haven't hit? So I realize we are going longer than we thought, but I want to raise this because I think we've talked about this at the retreat, but tonight's meeting certainly highlights this for me, is that in a year where there have been a lot of moving parts, I have continued to kind of make a plea for two-way communications and how can we best communicate between the superintendent and the treasurer through me. Sometimes it just needs to be with the superintendent and treasurer, but I feel like tonight's meeting is an example of when we're not communicating effectively. And I'll just say that I was really surprised for the discussion tonight because I've been putting out multiple emails asking for feedback, telling what is going to be on the agenda, wanting to know if there's anything else that we need to discuss. And yet it's been 11 days since we talked, and I had no idea that you still had this issue. So I guess I'm back to asking the board, how can we better communicate? Because I feel like tonight's meeting is an example of how communication did not go well. But I'm not sure what else to do at this point. I mean, are there better ways that we could be communicating at this point?
Well, I think it's important that, not only email, but to pick up the phone or even text to say, hey, check your email. I thought I communicated my feelings on this pretty plain and simple, but my thoughts on it have not changed. They're still in the same place. I think that making sure that we go that extra mile, that we are transparent.
Yeah, I don't
that we're
want to
clear.
rehash the issue. I'm trying to understand what happened, that I walked into this meeting tonight not knowing that there were still issues, because we had talked multiple times within a 24-hour period, and we're 11 days later, and I didn't know that there were still issues. I guess we do email a lot. Do you need a laptop? I mean, is email an issue for you? Because that is how we communicate pretty much. Because then it is public record. If I start moving into phone for board communications, that raises a lot of issues that I'm not interested in getting into.
Just a simple text or a call to check your email would be great.
Okay. I mean, I check my board email. Okay. I guess I just expect that we're all checking our emails regularly.
If I may, it is late in the evening here. As the two board members at whatever happens in November, there are certainly going to be two of the five of us sitting up here for sure, no question. I would probably encourage you two to go meet coffee together and hash this out.
Honestly, this is a whole board communication, because I feel like it's, the two-way thing isn't happening yet, so I just want to raise that. I think it's for the whole board to talk about what are our expectations. I agree, but I also feel like we've talked about this a lot, and I'm clearly a little confused about how to do this. All right, I'll move us on. 12.1, we have a consent agenda. We have items 13 through 17. There's none that I really need to highlight. Does anyone want to pull anything from the consent agenda? We do have the district calendar that we are approving tonight, having had a second read on it. All right. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Jura, roll call, please.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Larimer,
Yes.
Ms. Menke,
Yes.
Mr. Bennington,
Yes.
Ms. Rowland Miller.
Yes. And I pulled this out, and I kind of regret doing it now, but I pulled out the resignation letter to accept, I think it's really to accept the administrative resignation, but I guess we have to approve it as well. So we have to approve the following administrative resignation of Thomas Hostler, superintendent, effective August 31st of 2025. Can I have that motion, please?
So moved.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes, I wish him well, so I'll second it.
Ms. Larimer, second. Any discussion? Last comments?
It was certainly great to see so many people here earlier today, and the number of people that have reached out over the last week and a half. It's just been very nice, and one of my favorite all-time movies is It's a Wonderful Life. And I think that reflecting on the time here at Perrysburg, it really has been a wonderful life for me as a superintendent. The great families, the great staff, board members that care, and it's just all of that. And you start and you're excited, and the next thing you know, it's 18 years later. And so it's been a wonderful experience, and I'm very grateful to to all those who've just made a difference. But thank you. This has been very thoughtful and means a lot to me, your words, so thank you.
Thank you.
Best of luck.
Best of luck. Thanks.
Mr. Giroux, roll call, please.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Larimer,
Yes.
Mr. Bennington,
Yes.
Ms. Menke,
Yes.
Ms. Rowland Miller.
Yes. We moved 19-1 up, so with no objection, I'd like to adjourn the meeting. So moved. We're adjourned.